money is really currency. It's a power. It's an energy equation, energy per unit time, and what's the efficacy of the use of that. And so, with that in mind, I think that that's really the way to look at energy for your business. Is I inject this in, and how truly confident am I? Another thing too that I hear with entrepreneurs is they say, "Man, if I just had money, it'd be easy." Yeah, it would, because you wouldn't have a business just does that.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new edition of the None of Your Business podcast. And oh boy, today you guys are in for a huge treat. I know that you're going to grow, you're going to expand your knowledge, because today we have with us John Garcia from Solyco, founder of Solyco, doing great stuff in all kinds of spaces. But today I'm going to see if I can get him to give you some amazing advice to help you to understand the pathway, what you might need to be doing in order to grow your service-based business, but maybe even more importantly, the holy grail, where you're looking to remove yourself from your day-to-day grind in that particular business. Scale, the idea of uncuffing the golden handcuffs and releasing yourself. And then for some of you, I know that you already have multiple units. You have already conquered scale, but you haven't really figured out that next holy grail, the one that everybody talks about, an exit. Well, John is an absolute expert in all of those areas, because he's navigated it not just in the service-based realm, but in all kinds of realms. So I'm super excited to dive in. Thanks for being here with us.
Excited to be here. Thank you.
Let's talk first about, let's just roll it all the way back. If you were talking to a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant that is a solopreneur, they're in solo practice, maybe they're just getting started, they're looking to fill their books, get busy, but they have a vision. They're like, listen, I hear about, some of these larger groups that get put together, group practices. I hear about roll-ups, but first thing first, I've got to build my business. But I got to build it so that someone like you someday would actually be attracted to it. Are there any tips, things that maybe you've seen even in other industries? Because I'm a big proponent of us learning from mistakes, but also positive things that people have done in other industries that make you look at a business and say, wow, that's one that we want to get involved in.
Sure. So you covered some ground there. So a solopreneur, so first, what makes a business, special and attractive to us, if I can speak generally, attempt to speak for us and other investors, would be, so things of value are repeatable business revenue streams that are consistent and have some scale to them. Also, different customer groups and segments, demographics that could be attractive to a given investor, because they may have a different company that wants access to the channels that your customers may be in those. So if you're a trusted advisor, which a lot of these services business ends up being to these customers, investors may be attracted to you just for the access to those to some of your customer base. So that's one thing. Then as for the business itself, it's self-sustaining, healthy margins, and then having some growth opportunity in front of it. So that's an attempt at a quick answer there.
Yes, I love it. So let's talk about then that growth portion. Well, first let me go back, because I like what you're saying about the customer base. Previous to the podcast, you were saying from a strategic standpoint in your company, more of a generalist approach. However, in a niche down business, like if I'm a lawyer, it will be harder for me to be ultra successful if I'm just a general attorney. I'll have more success if I'm a criminal attorney, family law, right? So I'm going to pick a specialty and niche, and even within that, I would probably have, maybe in family law, I tend to represent more the female, or I represent more the male, because I understand the intricacies of that dynamic. How important is that when you're looking at that relative to like who I might be able to bring to the table, my client base for other opportunities?
Yeah, so I think doing a practice of excellence is super important. Period. Where regardless of what one is, if you're a generalist is more a view of the market, but then we get very specific about every deal, right?
Yes.
And so to your point, I would say that you know if attorneys are great examples, to be a great attorney. There are some general counsels, and they know what they don't know, and then they focus in and get those relationships with very specific attorneys, and can quarterback them well, scope out deals well. And so I think that it becomes very important to know who you are and what you're great at, and then stick to that and build your process out from that. And then regarding the customer piece of it, so if you are more in the the acute or specific practice role, like a criminal attorney, or some very specific tax, or some specialty. With the clients, it's about the client relationships. And so if you're who you're dealing with and who you're very close to, and you have those trusted advising relationships, if there are other partnerships or other whatever value they're providing, if there's an ecosystem that can be of value to an investment group, or kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, to have access and do deals with people where you have those deep relationships with a specific customer base. That's kind of what I was getting at.
Yep, I love it.
Yeah.
So let's then talk next level. You mentioned I need strong systems and processes in place so that it could be repeatable, scalable. The next level for a service-based entrepreneur would be multiple locations. They start to think, maybe I'll just bring in another doctor, attorney, accountant, or maybe I could service people in San Diego. But then the repeatability of that becomes an issue, especially in the service world, because it's a person that provides the service. So you and I might both be, say, physical therapists, and we might be following the same sort of schematic of a treatment plan, but your personality is different than mine. And so when we move it to San Diego and I put you in San Diego, even though we have all of these things the same, we might end up with a different result. Not a different result as far as like the outcome, but a different demographic. Maybe women relate to you more. And now my practice up here in LA, we have a ton of men. Now in your practice, we have a ton of women. This might happen because of marketing. This might happen because of systems and processes not being consistent. This might happen because of hiring. How important is it to you when you're looking at a business that they have systems and processes in place? And how important are these bumpers? How crazy am I allowed to get with this as I grow?
So great questions. So it depends really on what stage you're at and what you're looking to do, right? So early on, I think it's important to be, very focused, and then at the same time, like, have this balance of focus and flexibility. A lot of small companies are very capable, or I'm sorry, very flexible, but not necessarily capable. And so when they grow, so the difference between flexibility and capability is, so we'll have some companies that they're amazing. And so we had one company where at one time, like Boeing, Lockheed, NASA, John Deere, Tesla, and all these other, name a bunch of other companies, all wanted to do business. And they were bouncing back and forth between all of these different opportunities. But then we had to take a step back and see what can they actually deliver on, right? And where should they actually deliver? It's great to have opportunities, but then when you think through, it's really the value, and the value for you as a business that becomes very important, because new opportunity can become very attractive, and overly intoxicating in some ways for these young entrepreneurs, because they love the growth, and as long as it's strategic, and that there can be some stretch and some trade-off of process for growth. That said, as long as they are able to, once they get through and are accomplishing some of that growth, that they can hone it back into some sort of process, and make sure that look away from their process is valuable enough to where it either fits their process, or they can make a new one.
Yeah.
or that the deal's big enough where it brings in the resources to, to kind of offset that deviation from what their model is.
That's a big problem in scale is you may have the opportunity, you may not have the capital or the resources, even the human resource. For example, there might be an opportunity to open a space in San Diego, but I don't have the right physical therapist. I don't know, I'm very picky. We do it a specific way. So there's these two things that we juggle. Talk to me then, capital wise. That's when people listen to this podcast and they're like, wow, I'm going to call John. How do I know when I'm even ready to be looking, whether at a huge scale like with you or someone else? People always are saying, hey, I want to invest in your company. We have an emerging brand called Well Infused. Before we even launched, we had people coming and saying, listen, we'll put some money in and we'll take some equity. And we were like, well, it's not even going. We don't even know that we've actually even fleshed out or proven out the model. How do I discern when I need to make that move? If I make it too soon, the investors might be disappointed. If I make it too late, I'm going to crash and burn because I stepped into opportunity that I couldn't fulfill.
So the two things in my view are it's cost of capital and then the partnership, the value of the partnership. So when you go out to get money, you're entering into two things. One is you're buying, money's a commodity. So in its own, you're buying it. So think in terms of that. It's, if I need this capital, $1 million, 10 million, 100, whatever it might be, for these entrepreneurs, how am I going to inject this capital into my business and make enough to where I can pay that money back? And what am I going to end up paying back for the use of that capital, right? So if I was to go get a bank loan and I put this money in there, and then how long will it take me to pay it back? Where equity investment can be very attractive is, you don't necessarily have to pay it back in the rigidity of a debt term or the bank loan can be stressful for some people. That said, you are going to end up paying it back and then some. Otherwise, why would they be investing in the equity, right? And so first think of it on that material economic level, and then think, what am I getting with that partnership, with that person or that entity that's going to invest in my company? Are they bringing perspective to help me scale? Ideas or access, ideas for my business from a programmatic or setting things up? Or do they bring a new access or new bandwidth where they can help me, turn more units of customers, like what you were saying earlier, expand my, what's great about your unique offering, right? And so I guess the value of the partnership, that's what's called a strategic investor, is how strategic are they and how much will they actually help you, right, in your business. And so sometimes it's great to have somebody that knows money. Another thing too that I hear with entrepreneurs is they say, man, if I just had money, it'd be easy. Yeah, it would, because you wouldn't have, like, a business just does that. But that's not business. Business is money is really currency. It's a power. It's an energy equation. It's unit energy per unit time, and what's the efficacy of the use of that. And so with that in mind, I think that's really the way to look at energy for your business, is I inject this in, and how truly confident am I? And then the other thing too is to make time to deal with the capital. If you're going to grow, going to money markets, if you've ever bought a home, you go through just buying that's the easiest purchase.
Well,
and it's not, right? Because they'll like go through a mortgage process. It's such a pain in the rear, right? You can be as wealthy as you want, but if you're gonna be borrowing money, you got all the regulatory, all the compliance for moving money, and that's that can be very easy and very straightforward, because you got an asset backing. It's super straightforward. When you get into business and you're dealing with a more sophisticated investor, it's going to be that and then some.
Wow.
So I don't know if I've gone too far in your answer there.
No, that's awesome. That's very helpful. One of the concepts, I want to see if you agree with this concept, was actually Jay Abraham. I worked with Jay early in my career, and in the consulting side of things, he said to me, what's very interesting about your clients, so people in the service world, is that you're very stingy with equity that you don't have. Meaning, I have one office. Along comes John Garcia. He's like, I love what you're doing, and I see a vision for this. We can really scale this up. We can get to 100 units, and either there could be an exit or we could franchise. There's all these options, and I would like my company to put some money in exchange for equity. And what happens is right away, my thought is,
They get emotional.
why am I giving? I don't want to give you equity. Like this is mine, but I don't have the other 99 that your team, your knowledge base. So that's what you're talking about too. It's the capital plus situational awareness, wisdom, all of your backing of the team that's behind you. But I'm like, why do I have to give him equity? What is your thought about that? How should we frame that? How should we think about that? Because we want to end the game holding all of the pie.
Yeah. So these are great points. So people are very emotional about, or some people can be very emotional about equity, right? And in some ways that's good. Like you should, because equity is just that, it's ownership. And so on one side of things, one wants to be very judicious and very careful, because going into an equity relationship, that's an ownership relationship, right? And so again, depending, now there are all sorts of ways to structure equity. There could be buyback provisions, and if the partnership doesn't work out, the company has the right to buy it back at a certain multiple. So there are tools that one can use to make more of a short-term relationship opportunity, using equity as an investment instrument. And Adam Smith, right, economic godfather, stock is just that. It's a tool to provide ownership and an exchange where you can, so people buy stock every day in Apple, or, go to the public stock market. People don't get emotional about that because you can buy and sell. It's very liquid. And so now that said, in the private business, it's a lot more of a partnership in some ways, because you're allowing somebody into your DNA and into your business. So in that, be careful with who you partner with, who you want affiliated with your business, all of those things, right? Now, there are different instruments one can use because you can't know everything either, being humble. You can do all the due diligence you want. You think you know somebody, you think, you can do background checks and all of it. But until you're working together and figure out that chemistry and you're in the trenches. So there are instruments that can be used when structuring an equity deal to where people can invest in. And you just bet on the partnership. Sometimes you say, we're going to work this out. In some ways, equity is a great tool. We are now stuck together. And so we're going to figure this out, right? So we like that ethos. We tend to go,
let's figure it out.
Yeah, let's figure it out. And so now, that said, the other emotional part of equity is people just think they're giving up, so much. Do the math. Do the math, and so at the end of wherever you think you want to be, you're exiting at $1 billion, $2 billion, 100 million, whatever it might be for you. And I give that up. What does that mean to me, right? And
what does it leave me?
Yeah,
and what do I have now?
Yeah, exactly. and then the other part too is just do the math. It's just an instrument. It's like taking a loan and paying it back. In a way, but then there's a deeper connotation to it, which is that partnership. So I guess to attempt to put a bow on that, it's one, just be clear on the partnership and make sure that these are people that you want as equity investors. And then if that's the case, then get tactical about how you want to structure that equity so it represents the relationship really well. Like similar to a comp plan with an employee, you want, or a comp plan with a partner, you want, that's what an equity relationship should be.
Define roles, expectations, all of those terms. I want to turn the tables on you then slightly, because I agree 100%. You and your business, and during your lifetime, have accumulated a wealth of knowledge because you have looked at probably thousands of deals and participate in a small fraction of them. So now, through that process, you have an idea of what you are looking for. So when you encounter a situation, a business that's like, hey, John, can I get a moment of your time? I want to tell you what we're doing. You can read that relatively quickly and know, are we going to go to next steps? On the other side of the coin, though, somebody who is faced with opportunity and realizes, look, I need to add to this business, whether it's capital, knowledge base, partnership, relationships, and then they're out there. There's a lot of people that come along that say, we can help. What are some things that I should be looking for when I'm looking at somebody who has, they have the bank account, they have the funds to be able to help, but I want to avoid that we're going to have a disaster in the partnership. I want to avoid that you wrote the check and then you won't take my call. I want, like, how do I vet? Because the business owners, they're not getting thousands of offers. In fact, that's why they're coming to you pitching. And so how would we know that it's a good fit? What are some things that we should be looking for?
So, vision and taking the time to say, okay, so you invest, how does that look? And some investors are, nose in, fingers out is what they call it. So they'll just say, hey, I'm going to give you the money. I'm investing and believing in you. You're going to run your operation. I want these reports, and that's it. And then, and this is a way I can add value. I'll sit on your board. I can help you with these things, these introductions, and these types of deals. And then I guess one of the things that there's often a big gap, just even in operations. There's a gap between the board. If you have a company that has a board, then there's management, leadership, and then there's the people and then there's the middle management, and then there's people on the front lines. Let's just say those basic. The front lines in management, there's you can hear that all the time, especially in the service, like, I don't even know what they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of these service-based people are dealing with that, with just running their employees. So there's that difference in role and vision and ability. And then there's, the leadership, ownership, and because they're dealing with all of the, and sometimes there can be, we're just a number, all those things, and they're not, but just that gap in perspective. And then you go to the board, and the board's even less, sometimes the board is management, is leadership. That said, and then you get the investors, right? So the investors are looking at the market, and they're watching the numbers move. It depends on the investor you have. Some investors, we tend to be involved on the front lines. So we want to understand the entire business. Those are the partnerships we look for, is where we can provide value, where we've been there. We're on the battlefield, if you will, with our folks. And we're feeling it, we're seeing it. And so we like to play those things out before we make an investment and visualize that. Visualize the partnership of saying, here's how we would invest. We get what you're doing. We get your pitch. Here's how we think we can add value and partner with you. In addition to the capital, these are the things that you can count on from us. And these are the upside benefits, we'll call them. These are the other things we're capable of that may or may not happen just based on how we spend our time and how this unfolds, right? And so taking that time to really say, okay, so you invest, and having the humility as the investor to just slow down. It's okay to ask questions. A lot of people get like, oh, I don't want to seem dumb, or the dumb question is one not asked. And especially a lot of investors love to throw out all these acronyms and terms and just slow down and be like, what did you mean? I think it meant this, rather than, they're not going to go, he doesn't even know what that is, right? No, they're going to go, okay, this guy really wants to understand, or this person really wants to understand, really wants to get into it. Take a minute so you get it, and you have a vision, at least as far as the conversation's going, right, on what that partnership's going to look like. I love it. That's what I would say.
And then the last part, when you're investing in, I would say in any, you're in the biomedical space, well, basically in anything, because we're all here short term on this planet. What ultimately, how do you want the story to end? I mean, in this space, everybody's playing that, you hear about one, these guys, the unicorn that got the exit. What is, when you start and when you engage and you invest your time and capital, what do you want to be? How does the story end perfectly in your mind?
So, how does the story end? Meaning, how did,
How will we know that we've won? Let's say that you invest in my company.
Okay.
Is it just you've won if you get your money back and there's a great return on it? Do we win when we've made a global impact? And then, like, how do we, what's the finish line in all of this? Because I think, what I was mentioning to you earlier, I think one of the challenges for service providers is we want to help the world. We have a service. Like, if everybody just got chiropractic care, the world would be different. But then I open up my shop and I'm in LA and I'm seeing a good amount of people, but I'm not seeing, this literally is what happened to me, but I go to Nebraska and nobody knows who I am and they're not being impacted. So I was like, well, this is a small dent that I'm making. So I want to make a bigger dent. But the problem is because we don't get input from people like you, we just sit there and we're helping this little microscopic portion of the community. And then we get old, we retire, or we die. And I see it literally all the time on social media. Oh, so-and-so is just, either going to sell their practice for pennies on the dollar or close up shop. To me, then what happens? The impact is gone. All those people that were being served, they're not being served anymore. So I maybe made some money, but now my business just became a vehicle to put food on the table, buy a nice car or whatever it was, but the impact is lost. And if I ask service providers, initially they're about the impact. Then there's the financial side. But how would you suggest that we can win? What would be a win?
I see. So the win is for the person. It's what's your purpose. So using the service, model, I would say, so if a person went out and gave everything they had to the people, so it's about impact, right? It's about impact. Is impact for you. So if you created a lifestyle business and it gave you the time to spend time with your kids, your family, and you provided incredible service to the people, and you kept your business at a scale that allowed you to balance all of that, and you achieved what you wanted to achieve, then I think that's what it's about. So size doesn't necessarily mean winning, because people can sacrifice too much for just pure size, scale, and cash. Like a lot of we're big into purpose and impact and scale, right? So we like to do these things. Scale is important because we tend to want to make the quantity of impact, and for us to be involved, scale just naturally comes with that, right?
Right.
It's a piece, but scale at what level? So
and at what sacrifice?
Yeah. So being humble, we're people that we're in the billions in transactions and value, and be like, oh, it's amazing, and we're very we love what we're doing. Again, super biased, right? But and I get questions, and they'll say, hey, we want to bring you, we'll have a $30 million or $100 million offering. They'll be like, we want to bring you billions for that. We're like, no, we can't do that at that scale in that way. No, this is for this, because the equations of excellence and of high impact and high value, now many times that can scale into the billions, but today it's no. And will it get there? Perhaps but that said, we know we're going to at least get here, right? God can stop us. That's about it, and it is our view on things. And that happens, right? But
Yeah.
so if that happens, and you take a step back and you go, okay, this isn't for me. What am I missing? What are we not seeing? And so we like to build that elasticity that humility into our deals, to where and into our approach. So I think you're winning if you're taking a holistic approach to your business. If you want to be big, that's great. Go for it. Get scale. And then at scale, what is that impact? Right? Is it scale for the sake of scale? And then you get it all, then what? I always ask, then what? You got your billions, then what? Because then there's more beyond that, right? And so you as big as you think you're getting, you get there, and then you look up and there's trillions and other players, and then you just want to be the biggest, because that's not going to happen. And if it does,
It probably
what
wasn't
happened?
because and it probably wasn't because you woke up one day and said, I want to be the biggest.
And if you do, with the biggest why, right? And what happened because of that.
Right.
And so to me, that's how you win, is if you're clear and aligned, and like your integrity is aligned, and by integrity, your integrity is strong and aligned with what the outcome is, I believe you'll get there. And so I don't know if that
Absolutely.
yeah,
I think what happens to us a lot of times, we end up chasing other people's dreams
that's right.
because other people tell us, well, in this industry, this is what you need. This is what you should do. This is how, right? And I love that, to define that.
It's
and stay in your
wonderful to
values.
learn from other people and see what they're doing, and it's easy to over romanticize. One of my business partners said this. You see somebody and they have this lifestyle, and you go, oh man, if I could just have all that wealth or whatever, then it'd be great. It'd be like, yeah, but let's say you had to take everything that came with it, not just the money. It's you take everything that comes with it. And there's this saying that everybody puts their problems in a pile, and so you get all of that plus the problems. You're going to want your own problems back.
Yeah.
You know, and so have that love and humility for your life and what you're supposed to be. Learn from others. That's awesome to look at other people, to emulate other people. Artists, you know, they say that's the highest form of flattery is to copy. Do it, but you know, do it because it's part of who you are, what you're building for you. And I love what you said. That's the most important thing, is just make sure to take a step back and look at what you're doing for you and what your vision is.
I love that.
Yeah.
I know that so many people are going to request we do some deep dive episodes, because there's some stuff that you drop that we could sit and super break down. So hopefully we'll get you back on the podcast.
Honored to be here. And
we
thank
will
you.
break
Yeah.
some stuff down for people and give them some nuts and bolts. And I get the feeling that, like, in this space, this isn't necessarily like what you look at every day, but your perspectives are incredible for people like me who are in a service world and everybody who's listening. And that, as I said earlier, I think that's the greatest perspective, is when we can take knowledge from other industries. So, you know, banking, doing the drive-through banking and then seeing that translate into restaurants. We can't just stay looking as a dentist at what other dentists are doing, because there's other really cool stuff going on in real estate and biotech and all of these other industries that you are involved with. And if we could just figure out to take the massive successes and breakthroughs that you have seen and then learn how to apply it in our business, then we get that same boost.
That's how, like, talk about service business. I believe we're in the service business.
You are in the
Everybody's
service business.
of us.
Yes, you are in the service business.
And we invest in service businesses. And like one of these examples, you know, Steve Jobs was you know, praised for, he went to the Ritz-Carlton, saw their service, and then pulled that idea into the Apple retail and said, we're going to run like that.
Yeah.
Right. And that, you know, transformed the way a lot of the retail was run. And then Elon Musk, again, looked at it and said, I'm not going to have a sales force at all. And so you make something good enough, they're going to come to you. And so it's whatever that vision is for you that, and then they take these pieces, and then people see these models, and then they'll take those models and apply them where it's relevant. And do you know it's relevant? If you feel like it, you know, play it out and then lean into it, right? So anyway, yes.
I love it. I love it.
Yep.
Thanks
Same.
for being on the show, John. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate the time. Yeah.
All right, everybody. I hope you took notes. I hope you will apply. I always say this every podcast. I've never seen anybody massively grow their business just by listening to podcasts. If you got value, that's excellent, and that's why John is here. But you are the one that has to go out and apply that into your business if you're expecting any kind of result. You can't just say, well, listen, John, I listened to you. It didn't work. You have to actually put it into action. Well, I don't know how we top this next week, but we're going to give a run at it. We'll see what happens. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back again next week with a brand new edition of the None of Your Business podcast.